Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to another episode of the Underhive's Most Wanted, a series dedicated to the analysis of the Dramatis Personae fighter in Games Workshop's Necromunda. In this series, we will discuss the characters' rules, their equipment, their strengths and weaknesses, their positive gameplay impact, as well as negative gameplay impact, and other critical information to help you to dominate in your next campaign of Necromunda. And on today's episode, we are actually going over three different fighters. As you can see in this picture, we are going after three house exclusive bounty hunters in the form of Slate Merdena, Kria Kytoro the Huntress, as well as the Headsmen of House Cawdor. We'll be talking about each of these different fighters one at a time, talk about their stats, their equipment, as well as the rule sets, and talk about what kind of positive negative impacts they will have on your campaign play. Now, because this video is a little bit more of a deeper dive, I will put timestamps in the description box down below, so that way you can navigate to a particular fighter you're looking for more information on for the Dramatis Personae. So with that being said, let's go and talk about three of the most deadly bounty hunters that you can recruit for your gangs in your campaigns of Necromunda. Alright, so let's go and talk about Kria Kytoro the Escher Bounty Hunter. She's going to cost 240 credits. Now, if you want to know what this is actually from, this is from the actual Necromunda Comprehensive Rule Set. I'm just showing this one because it's available for the public to download, and let's go ahead and talk about this bounty hunter in particular. So the neat thing about her is that her stats are actually quite good for combat. She's got 5-inch movement, 3+ for weapon skill, as well as for ballistic skill. She has 3 strength and toughness. The cool thing about her, she also has 3 wounds. That kind of puts her on the same level as most Orlock leaders, as well as Ironhead Prospector or Charter Masters. She also has a 3+ initiative, which is going to be really good to talk about, especially since she has a step aside skill, but we'll talk about that in a second. She has 2 attacks base, as well as 6+ for leadership, so pretty good, decent leadership stat there. 5+ for cool, so she's got a really good cool stat there as well. 6+ for willpower, which makes her pretty good for that, and a 6+ intelligence as well. And like I said before, she costs 240 credits for her cost. Now, she is a bounty hunter, so she does have that bounty hunter special rules attached to her, so if she does fall victim to the we'll get our bid special rule, that is going to be kind of tough, especially at 240 credits. But let's go ahead and talk about her equipment and her weapon skills, real quick. So for her weapons and her war gear, she comes with mesh armor. She has a 5-up armor save. She also is equipped with Kimsynth, so that way all she has to do is pass an intelligence check to add bonuses to her toxic attacks. With an intelligence score of 6, she's not going to have a problem at all doing that as well. She also has a long last, which is actually a pretty good special weapon. It's got a good series of range. You get +1 hit from long distance. At the same time, she also has an infrasight attached to it, so your enemies don't benefit from partial cover. And when combined with her 3+ ballistic skill, she's pretty much going to be hitting on 2-up for most of the time, causing a lot of problems for your enemies, which is really, really great. At the same time, she also comes with a couple of pretty good equipment weapons. She has an auto pistol, which is kind of okay, just for general lulls. She also has throwing knives, which is great to use, especially for your stealth is consideration, because throwing knives are silent. She'll be able to throw these knives at 6 inches as well as 9 inches because of her strength characteristic, which is kind of nice as well. And plus, she also has the toxin trait attached to those weapons, so she can take Kimsynth, make it a little bit deadlier. And she also has stiletto knives, being plural here, that she could also use in close combat as well. And of course, if she takes Kimsynth, could put that intelligence check, get her that boost that she needs in order to use those weapons more effectively. So with that being said, if she charges in the close combat, that gives her a combat score of 3, and with an additional weapon on top of that, that gives her 4 attacks base, which is not bad, especially when they have Toxin, and when you pop Kimsynth as well, it makes her quite deadly in both close combat. Plus, not to mention, she's got that long last with the infrared sight, that's going to make her quite deadly for ballistic skills as well. So she's actually quite kitted out for kill with that 240 credits that she has. At the same time, let's take a look at her skills real quick. There's another reason why she's also really good. She has Infiltrate, Precision Shot, and Step Aside. So let's talk about those skills real quick. Now, Precision Shot, that's an okay rule. Basically, what ends up happening, if you hit your target on a 6-up, it automatically ignores armor, so that is quite good. However, rolling a perfect 6 is only 1/6 of the time anyways, and so because of that, you're not going to have to really worry about that too much. But in case if it does pop up, it's a nice little bonus. After all, she's going to be reliably hitting people at a 2+ for most of the time using her infrared sight on her long last. The only problem, though, is that the long last doesn't have that much power in terms of armor penetration, so you might have a little bit of a harder time with that. I guess that's why they balance it out with the precision shot, so that way you get that when you roll a 6. The other 2 skills that are really important are probably be Step Aside. Step Aside basically states that if she's engaged in close combat, she can pass an initiative test. She can actually dodge 1 attack, and you can do that per enemy that you get in close combat with. So for example, let's say your character charges into somebody, and maybe her attacks are not enough to actually wound the character, unless say the character's only got like maybe 2 attacks base, like it's a champion or maybe a leader, or maybe just 1 attack base even, if it's just like a normal Ganger or a Juvie, and they try to attack back, all she has to do is roll 3 up and she can dodge one of their attacks as well. She's allowed to do this for 1 for every enemy combatant, which actually makes her quite good in case she gets ganged up upon. She can actually dodge an attack from each of her enemies. She can reliably get those off with that 3+ initiative. So that's kind of like a nice little bonus there as well. Now, the infiltrate skill, though, is probably what's going to make her the most deadly. That's probably the most important aspect for this character. The reason why is because Kria can then deploy anywhere on the battlefield within, as long as she's outside 12 inches from enemies, which is great. You can put her up on an elevated position, maybe in your enemy's deployment area, and she can start sniping at fools and start taking people out, making a perfect assassin as well. Now, this is where things get kind of weird with her special rule. She has the Death Maiden special rule. And that Death Maiden special rule basically states that Kria the Huntress is a bounty hunter that can only be taken by Escher gangs. So that is something that you have to take into consideration. She is a Escher bounty hunter, and that is the only people that she can actually work for is for Escher gangs. Now, that's kind of a bit of a handicap, but at the same time, it's also kind of a weird rule as well. And the reason why is because clearly when this rule was made for Kria Kytoro, they didn't release the House of Blades at that time. So the House of Blades, you guys are aware, is the latest installment for the gang-specific book for Escher players in campaigns in Necromunda. And the reason why I bring that up is because Death Maidens are actually something you can recruit in your gangs, and they do have the Toxin Blood trait, which means that they get to reroll 1s for all their Toxin weapons as well. As you can notice, that rule isn't stated here for Kria Kytoro as well, but she is a Death Maiden. And I think that's the problem when they rolled out these books. They never actually boosted up her abilities to match up with what was going on in the books at the same time. So because of that, I would argue as an arbitrator that she should be able to have that Toxin Blood trait, so that way she can reroll 1s when using Toxin weapons because she's a Death Maiden. If your arbitrator doesn't let you do so, that's perfectly understandable because it's their campaign, their rules. But if I was running it, I would defer the rule of cool and let her have that Death Maiden rule as well. And like I keep on saying, the Forge World exclusive bounty hunters like Kria are kind of weird. And the reason why they're in such a weird place is because they cost you a lot of points in terms of the gameplay. At the same time, she's also a Forge World exclusive miniature. So if you want to actually get the actual miniature from Forge World, she could be quite pricey for you to buy in order to get for your gang. Now granted, you could argue that the things that she can do makes it worth it, especially if you look at her psychology stats. So that's something you might want to take into consideration. But at the same time, though, 240 crits is quite a lot of points, and you can actually sink that into other fighters with even better weapons in some situations as well. Now, in my opinion, though, even though Kria Kytoro makes a good bounty hunter character for Escher gangs, in my opinion, however, what makes her really shine is with the newer outcast rules. With those outcast gangs, you can pick a leader like a bounty hunter, like Kria Kytoro, and use her as a leader for your gang. And this is actually quite good because she has excellent stats for psychology for her gang. At the same time, you can also give her new skills as well. For example, you can give her the Survivor archetype and give her Nerves of Steel, so that way she can pass a pinning with that 5/0 cool check. You get her new skills as well. She would also make a really good Psyker, actually, as well, because she has that 6+ willpower. You can make her a weird archetype and give her abilities like Biomancy, for example, which would fit narratively with the fact that she's a Death Maiden, make it even deadlier. The cool part is, too, is that you can actually equip her with better weapons as well. You can get her plasma guns, you can get her long rifles, you can get her auto pistols and man-stopper rounds, or whatever you want to get for this character and make her super deadly as well. Make her the leader of an Escher outcast gang, so that way you got really easy access to hotshot last guns, make that gang extremely powerful as well. So even though she may be kind of expensive in terms of the traditional bounty hunter role, she would make an excellent gang leader for an outcast gang. And that pretty much makes up Kria Kytoro for this review. Alright, so up next we're going to talk about Slate Merdena, the Orlock Road Boss. This bounty hunter has been costed 360 credits as well. He's also a Dramatis Personae character. And what's interesting about Slate Merdena is that his character is quite interesting because the lore that he has in his background was actually the first indicator to Necromunda players that there was an Ash Waste and that there was a presence out in the Ash Waste as well. Slate Merdena is kind of like a road warrior, Mad Max type character who drives his own rig out in the Ash Waste and secures transportation contracts for House Orlock. And as a road boss, sometimes he takes care of business inside of the hive for the gang as well, acting as kind of like a bagman of sorts for his gang. And so it's interesting because he also has like a bunch of daughters apparently who are also special characters in the Ash Waste as well, which is actually quite cool and very narratively cool. And at the same time, he does cost 360 credits, which does make him kind of expensive, but when you look at his stat line and things he can do, it's kind of justified. So let's talk about his stats real quick. So he's got a movement of 5 inches, so average speed there. He's got a weapon skill 2+, and a ballistic skill 3+, making him quite deadly. He's got strength 3 as well as 4 toughness, so he's a little bit harder to kill. He's got 3 wounds, which makes him very powerful that way. Also 3+ initiative, which actually makes him quite swift, and also 3 attacks as well. So this guy is super deadly with his combat stats. Now, if that wasn't good enough, his psychology stats are also quite good as well. He's got 4+ for leadership, 5+ for cool, 4+ for willpower, as well as 5+ for intelligence. So his psychology stats are also on point as well. That 4 up willpower, 4 up leadership, 5 up cool, 5 intelligence is absolutely fantastic as well. And let's go ahead and talk about his war gear. So he's equipped with mesh armor that gives him a 5-up armor save. He also has frag grenades, which is, quite standard. He also has photo goggles as well, which means he can also fly in pitch black conditions, which actually makes him a little bit more of a viable option, especially if you go going out to the ash wastes with environmental effects, or if you're playing in the Sump Sea, for example, or if you're just playing in the Underhive in general. He's also got pretty good close combat weapons. He's got a power hammer, which is actually very, very powerful in close combat, and he also has a plasma pistol too, which is also really good in shooting. With that 3+ ballistic skill and the bonus he gets from shooting in close range of plasma pistol, he's going to be causing all kinds of problems. That power hammer, when combined with his 2 weapon skill, could make him extremely deadly as well. When this guy charges into close combat, he has 3 attacks base. He gets +1 for charging. He gets another 1 for having an additional hand weapon. That's giving him 5 attacks total with power hammers and plasma pistols. That is no slouch as well. And the icing on top of the cake, he also comes with Macula, a cyber mastiff as well. We're going to talk about that animal too. So he also gets bonuses for additional attacks against enemies because he actually charges in his enemies with multiple characters. He could also be protected by his Macula Cyber Mastiff as well. So it's just all kinds of amazing as well. So not only does he have really good weapons as well and equipment, he's also got pretty good skills. So first of all, he's got the Fearsome skill, which means that your enemies will need to actually have to roll a willpower test to see if they can even charge him to close combat. So a lot of these guys might not even go after him because of his fearsome reputation. So that kind of helps him out there. At the same time, he also brings Iron Will to the battlefield as well, which means that if you take bottle tests, you take 1 less bottle test in your gang as well. At the same time, if you also have an Arms Master in your gang, because this guy was only taken by Orlock gangs, that means you have -2 to your bottle rolls with Rule of Iron from those guys. So it actually makes your gang very much durable, makes them stick in the fight longer, which is awesome. And he's also got Nerves of Steel, which is great because he's got a 5+ cool, because he's going to be shot at quite a bit by your opponents because of how tough he is. So if he can pass that cool test, he can skip that pinning action, and they can charge in close combat and just smash face with his power hammer as well as plasma pistol. Makes him really, really amazing as well. Now, there is a downside to Slate Merdena. He is an Orlock Road Boss, which means that he is a bounty hunter that can only be taken by Orlock gangs. So he's not available for all gangs to be hired up as a bounty hunter, but if you're an Orlock player, though, he can really help you out quite a bit. Now, before we go into more of an analysis about this guy, let's talk about Macula, his Cyber Mastiff. His Cyber Mastiff is just quite normal. It's got a 5-inch movement, 3+ weapon skill, 3 strength and toughness, 2 wounds, 4 initiative, 2 attacks, 7 leadership, 6 cool, 8 willpower, 9 intelligence. He has a combat master ability, which means he gains bonuses for fighting in multiple targets at the same time. He's also got Loyal Protector, so he sticks around with Slate Merdena, and Watchdog, who protects him in case he gets seriously injured. At the same time, he's also got a Savage Spite skill, which is nothing all that great. He's just strength 3 -2 AP, 1 attack, with a disarm ability as well. But the nice thing about Macula, though, is because he has that Watchdog special rule and that Loyal Protector special rule in case if he gets, Slate Merdena gets put a serious injury on. That's really why you're really taking this guy, which is, was with the Cyber Mastiff, because he adds some bonuses to Slate Merdena. Now, he is quite pricey at 360 credits, so that is the only downside about Slate Merdena as well. But if you look at his stats, the weapons he's packing, he's actually worth every single credit, especially in my opinion, because of that as well. And so that's what makes him such a valuable aspect of that. That bonus he gives for Iron Will is going to be really nice for Orlock gangs to stay in the fight, which is really cool as well. That Fearsome skill makes him a little more survivable, as well as his weapon layout that he has too, which is also cool. Which is also very cool. Now, like I said before, there is a drawback for Slate Merdena. Obviously, it's his costs and credits. Another drawback, of course, that he does have that will take our bit special rule because he's a bounty hunter, so you could lose his service in your gang as well. At the same time, he's also a Forge World exclusive miniature, which would be quite pricey, especially if you live out of the UK. So those are some considerations to take into effect. However, though, in my opinion, though, he'd make a really good bounty hunter character to have in your games on Necromunda just because of what he's able to do for your gang. At the same time, Slate Merdena would also make an excellent Orlock Outcast gang leader, which would be really cool because, yeah, he costs 260 credits, but his stats are amazing to use as a leader for an Outcast gang. I mean, just his willpower and cool alone makes him really interesting as well. You could put Mastermind archetype on him with his intelligence stats. You could also put even make a really good Psyker too with that 4 willpower. All kinds of things you could do with this character makes him really tough. You could put maybe you just make him a leadership support character. Give him Mentor, for example, because that 4 leadership will definitely trigger all the time. And give bonus experience points to all of his guys as well. So that's another thing you'd be kind of neat about him too. The only unfortunate part though is that you do have to be an Orlock Outcast gang in order to use this guy, which is kind of sad if you want to use him as a leader, which I don't understand why you just can't use him as a leader for a gang in general. Just pay the 360 credits for a leader, but I can see why they kind of did it for balancing issues for the most part. But yeah, that's Slate Merdena. He's really worth the credits he has. I've actually used Slate Merdena in games of Necromunda myself as an Orlock player, and he just melts face every single time he goes against people. So he's definitely worth the credits for your gang as well. Now, the price to buy him, however, that's basically on you. But I thought the miniature looked really cool at the time, and so that's why I purchased him, and I have no regrets ever since. So that makes up Slate Merdena, the Orlock Road Boss. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the Headsman, the House Cawdor Executioner, who costs 210 credits. Just for you, those of you who are not aware of his lore, the Headsman is actually the personal agent of Lord Mortimer Cawdor. He's the Lord of the High Thane of House Cawdor. This guy acts basically as the bagman, personal enforcer of the leader of the actual House Cawdor itself. So let's go ahead and talk about his stats real quick and what he's capable of. So he's got a movement characteristic of 5 inches. He's got a 3+ weapon skill, which is amazing, but a 6+ ballistic skill, which is kind of sad. But when you look at his stat lines, you'll understand why. He's got strength 4, which makes him extremely deadly, as well as 3 toughness and 3 wounds as well, which is kind of nice. He's got 3+ initiative, which is excellent, as well as 3 attacks. So his stat lines are geared, as you can probably tell, to close combat. Now his psychology stats are actually pretty decent considering he's a Cawdor player, with 7 leadership, 7 cool, 6 willpower, as well as 9 intelligence. Now, let's talk about exactly what this guy's equipped with. He's got light carapace armor, which gives him a 4-up armor save, which is extremely nice. He also has a stim slick stash as well that he can take to increase his strength as well as movement characteristic once per battle, and he has a 2-handed axe, which actually makes him quite deadly in close combat. When he charges, he's got 4 attacks, and when he charges against opponents, he's got that 200 axe is going to gearly give him that really high strength attack and really destroy your opponents that way as well. Now, when you look at his skills are actually quite good. He gets bonuses for counterattacking, for attacking against multiple targets, and he does attacks against multiple enemies. He's also got the fearsomeness trait, which means your opponents need to pass a willpower test in order for them to chase after him, which is kind of nice. He also is inspirational, which also helps out with recovery tests for your lower tiered Orlock gang members, kind of basically your bone pickers, for example. It will be really nice. And he has rain of blows, which means that his fighting ability is in a simple action, which is great because if he's in range of the versatile trait of his 2-handed axe, he can just wheel around and just attack twice per turn, which is actually kind of nice also. Now, there is some sad things about this character, right? He's also got the Thane's Executioner role, which is kind of sad, which means that the Headsman is a bounty hunter that can only be taken by Cawdor gangs. So, just like Kria before him, she can only be taken by Orlock gangs. Slate Merdena can only be taken by Orlock gangs. The Headsman can only be taken by Cawdor gangs, is what he basically can do for there. But even though he has that going on, he does have the iconic figure, which is kind of nice because Headmans may perform a group activation in the same way as a champion, as described on page 20 of the comprehensive rules set. So he is kind of nice. He's not as expensive as Slate Merdena, for example, because he only costs 210 credits, and it's basically like having another champion in your gang, which is really actually good. In my opinion, if you really want to really use this guy effectively in your gangs, what you should do is actually pair this guy up with Cawdor bone pickers. The reason why is because the bone pickers are usually your exploitable chaff. These guys die all the time, but they're also more geared for close combat. So if because of that you can attach this guy with those fighters, you can group activate the bone pickers, also help him out with his inspirational skill to keep those guys into the fight, and also adds a much needed punch with his combat abilities against your enemies. And so that's the reason why the Headsman is actually quite useful as a Cawdor agent, because of that fact. Now granted, you do have to worry about out the Bounty Hunter rule. We'll get our bits. You're out 210 credits if he leaves your surface, but he's actually quite good for the money that you're putting, the credits you're putting into him. He's got good armor save, decent combat stats as well. He's going to put out a lot of destruction for enemies. He's quite an intimidating figure to have on the battlefield. So that's the cool thing about this character, is that the fact that we're doing that. Now, the thing you got to remember, of course, is that your opponent is going to be shooting at this guy quite a bit because of the fact that he is so deadly in close combat. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a spring up ability or like nerves of steel, so he will be getting shot at. So make sure you use those bone pickers as human shields to protect your headsman as you close the distance as well. Now, there are some negatives about the headsman as well. The headsman, for example, is a Forge World exclusive, so if you want to get the miniature from Forge World, he could be kind of pricey. At the same time, his point value is quite high as well at 210 credits, so that will be eating into your gang's credit budget for your gang's rules, so keep that in mind about him. Now, oddly enough, he would, and usually I say this about a lot of the Bounty Hunter characters, he actually would make a pretty decent outcast leader as well if you want to make a House Cawdor outcast gang, which in my opinion, the House Cawdor outcast gangs are even deadlier than their normal gang counterparts, because you can use both Redemptionist equipment and Cawdor equipment for your outcast gang, in which case he would be pretty good at that as being a leader for that. He's got good combat stats, but the problem is always the psychology stats are actually not that great. So that's the reason why I would shy away from using him as an outcast leader. But if you want to, that option is available to you. It could be a lot of fun to actually do that. And that is our review of the Headsman for House Cawdor. So in conclusion, the Bounty Hunter characters have always been in a strange place for players, especially for those who are trying to look for a way to use these Bounty Hunters in their gangs, at the same time try to balance that against the real world costs of actually recruiting these guys. And the reason why is because each of these Bounty Hunters are actually worth quite a bit of point values in your games of Necromunda. And the problem that you run into is by the time you generate enough credits to actually hire one of these Bounty Hunters, you could just use those credits on other things like better weapons, equipment, and in some cases even vehicles. So because of that, it's kind of hard to justify the point sink that you have to put for one of these Bounty Hunters to join your gang. At the same time, however, you also have to worry about the real world costs about these, because a lot of these Bounty Hunter miniatures are Forge World exclusives, so they can be kind of expensive that way. I know you could get these through third-party counterfeit casting if you really want to do so. That's entirely your choice. It's your money. You can do what you want. So you could offset the cost that way, but like I said before, it's kind of weird to, justify having the miniature in the gang when, the rules and the point values and everything else involved, becomes kind of a hindrance. That is unless, of course, you plan on using these guys as outcast leaders. Like I keep on saying in these videos, these Bounty Hunters would be excellent outcast gang leaders. I have the sneaky suspicion that's why Games Workshop created the outcast gang system for Necromunda, so that way they could, generate more sales for these Bounty Hunters, act as leaders for those gangs. So that being said, it pretty much comes down to your individual choice. Do you think that the real life cost of actually purchasing these miniatures would be a really good inclusion to your gang or as a leader of your gang? And like always, it's always up to your choice. Personally, for me, if I was to actually try to put these guys in there, I would try to find the cheapest way possible if I wanted to get the official miniatures. And if I couldn't afford the official miniatures, what I would do then is, of course, would be to convert my own. Don't forget, there's also a plethora of excellent 3D printing options that are available out there. There's also a lot of different type of miniatures you could use as proxies, or even better, just kit bash your own out of different parts from miniatures that you might have lying around. Either way, it's up to you how you want to use your gangs. I'm just here to provide the information to help you out with your decision. So that being said, that's good to do for this one. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for more information about the hobby aspect on this channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.